Good morning. This video is about washing cloth nappies. That's the big thing that everybody's fear is with cloth nappies. I think when the first time you think about using cloth nappies, I'm absolutely certain that the vision that pops into your head is that as a cloth nappy user, we'll all be down at the river with our washboards, rinsing out our nappies by hand. And then taking them home and popping them in the wringer washing machine and then spending the afternoon wringing them out after you've boiled them and soaked them and all these terrible things that we have to do because we use cloth nappies. Well, it's all wrong. Cloth nappies are actually very simple to wash. Unfortunately, when you do research online, it doesn't seem to be the case because there's so many different varying information, and there's a lot of different sites that have huge amounts of information on them about things that go wrong with cloth nappies too. Now, what fascinates me with that is that I come across some mums who are very, very stressed about using cloth nappies because they've read all of these things that could go wrong when they're using cloth nappies. Now, I've been in the industry for over 10 years now, coming up 11 years, and I could easily answer most of the questions that parents have about like if something's gone wrong with nappies. But in the thousands of people that I see every year, only a very small percentage of people ever actually have problems with washing cloth nappies. And there's a couple of very simple things that we can do to help make sure that our washing is easy and that we don't make some fundamental mistakes. But when you go online and you read all of this information about all these things that could go wrong, you set yourself up to be concerned about if anything goes wrong. What I suggest is don't read all that stuff. If something goes wrong with your nappies, then go and find the solution. Come to me, do some research on the internet, find the solution if something goes wrong. But don't go looking for everything that could go wrong, because most things will never happen to you. It's just that it's people have put online everything that they've, or every experience that people have had with cloth nappies doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen to you. Most people never have a problem. It's just that but when they do have a problem, they instantly put it all out there. On my website, I only have quite basic do's and don'ts on the washing, purely because I don't want to have a whole lot of information that people could research about to get confused, and they're not even using cloth nappies yet, based on washing. Let's keep it simple. If you then have a problem, you come to me, we solve it, and it's quite simple. But if you research all of the problems that could go wrong before you start using them, then it potentially could put you off, which is why I only have simple washing instructions on the website. But what I'm going to do here is I want to take you through the correct way to wash your nappies, right from when you take the nappy off until when it goes on the line or the dry. I wish I had the budget to do a lovely video with a washing machine and a washing line and have people film it for me, but unfortunately you just have to watch me sit here and talk you through it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with when you take the nappy off the baby. Alright, so we take the nappy off the baby and there's a couple of issues. So this is the first part. New parent, not sure, haven't used cloth nappies before, and the scariest thing about using cloth nappies is if you take that nappy off and there's a giant poo sitting there waiting for you, right? Scary. But there's a few different, so first of all, let's just discuss the different types of poo. First of all, you have the newborn poo. So newborn poo, completely inoffensive. It's just like a little bit of liquid and a few lumps sitting on there, right? So what you do is you take the nappy into the toilet, and then you rinse the nappy in the toilet or under the sink, kitchen sink, not the kitchen sink, sorry, the bathroom sink. Don't do it in the kitchen sink. Just rinse it off in the bathroom or the laundry sink, and then make sure you give the sink a swirl afterwards. But once you've rinsed off the newborn poo, stick the nappy into the bucket, you're done. Next thing. Right, so you've got a solid poo on there. So it's all come out and they haven't sat on it yet. So it's still sitting in a wee package in the back. So you take the nappy to the toilet, open the nappy in the toilet, and then just have something like, we had a $2 shop spatula. Just make sure you write poos only on the spatula, so nobody puts it back in the kitchen drawer. But we just had a wee spatula and you gave it a poke and it rolled into the toilet and then you flush it away. Simple. So then you get to the third one, right? So the third one where it could be one of two. So one, it's like it's wet or it's been sat on and it's all squished in the nappy, or you've got your other one, which is what we call a poo-nami. So that was when there's just poo everywhere. Like, it doesn't matter what you do, there is poo for miles. So with that, something like that where you've got a lot to deal with, you take the nappy to the toilet, you turn the nappy inside out like that, push it down into the bowl of the toilet, right? Give it a swirl in there. Then drop the nappy down and flush the toilet on it. So where the water comes around and swirls down, you run the nappy against that water there and just rub it up and down, and that will rinse most of the poo off. If you don't like the idea of that, you can get a product called a nappy spray, and unfortunately mine got flogged at the last workshop. But you just have a nappy sprayer which has got a little head on it and a hose, and it connects to the pipe going into the cistern of the toilet. It's got a little connection with a turn-off valve. And so you grab that and you just give it a shower and you rinse it into the toilet. The interesting thing though is when you talk about like putting the nappy into the toilet, people freak out about it because they think, oh my goodness, you just said to put your hand in the toilet bowl. In New Zealand, all of the water that we flush down the toilet is drinking water. So it's not bad water, it's not come from somewhere dodgy or anything like that. It is fresh drinking water that you flush down the toilet. So by putting your hand in there, don't be stressing about it. You're just going to get the nappy clean. And if you do get a little bit of toilet water on your hands, it is just drinking water. And the best news is you can just wash your hands and start fresh again. I think we forget that you can just wash it off, dry your hands, and you've got clean hands again. Right, so don't be worried about popping your hand in there to give the nappy a good rinse, because you can wash your hands afterwards. The next stage that we've got though is, so we've rinsed our nappy and we put it into a bucket. There's two options with your buckets here. So first of all, what most brands suggest is dry paling. So that's when you've rinsed the nappy and then you stick it into a dry bucket and it sits there until you're ready to wash. So there's no water, there's no soakers or anything in the bucket. It's just a dry pail, which is why it's called dry paling. That's fine as long as you're washing every single day because you don't want them sitting there getting funky. But also as long as the laundry is not the main entrance to your home. Because what we had was in our house, we welcome people into our home through the laundry. So if you've got a dry pail of nappies sitting there or getting all nasty and smelly, then it's not a fun place to encourage people to walk through. So what we did was we used to, like, say about lunchtime, because generally he would poo around 11, 12 o'clock. So all the nappies would go into the dry pail, and then at lunchtime he might do a pooey one. So he'd rinse the nappy out as well as possible, stick it in the bucket, and then we'd just chuck some water in there. So with nothing else, no soakers or anything like that, no white vinegar, no baking soda, nothing, just water. So we'd top the bucket up so that the nappies weren't just sitting there dry. And then at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we used to wash all the nappies. So every single day we washed. We never ever did left them sitting for a few days, because especially in summertime, I'm in Bay of Plenty, so it gets very humid, can get quite nasty. You start risking things like mildew and things if you've got nappies sitting around in the bucket for a few days on end. It's not a good way to do it, because then some of the, especially the synthetic fabrics, can start harbouring the smell of the urine, or anything that's sitting in the nappy can start taking on that smell as well. So we used to store them wet in the afternoon and then put them through the wash in every afternoon. So once you get your bucket and so you're finished, what we would do is we would get the bucket of nappies, and then you go into your washing cycle. So we're going to get the nappies and make sure that when we take the nappies off, if you've got Velcro, all your Velcro tabs are folded over so it doesn't catch on anything. If we had waterproof covers that were just on their own, like these ones, I used to stick them into a laundry bag so that they would actually be a little bit looked after in the wash, so it didn't affect the waterproofing when you put them through the wash. Then what we did was we got all the nappies in the bucket, tipped the nappies and the water that was in the bucket into the washing machine. And what we did was we ran a rinse cycle. So you just run a rinse cycle. So whether it's the final rinse or just if you can just choose a rinse on the washing machine, you run just a rinse cycle. What that did was rinse any urine or any bits in the nappies out. So they're all fully rinsed out. Once the rinse cycle had finished, we got all the baby's clothes and towels and anything else that we had, and we stuck them in the wash with the nappies, and we ran one load. Now, the main reason for that was because I had a friend who freaked out about it one day. She was like, "Oh, but there's been poos on there." Now, we had a child who did the poo Nappies, right? So he would do a poo and it would come out everywhere. The worst one that we ever had was, and with a poo Nappy, seriously, you can hear it coming from the other end of the house. It is that loud. It's like a thunderstorm in their pants. Right, so he has this punami. It hits the bottom of the nappy, shoots straight up the back into the base of his neckline. Then gets better, starts coming out the arms of his onesie. So he had one of those little onesie outfits on. Starts coming out of the onesie and the ankle holes. So the entire baby and his clothes and his nappy and everything was covered in poo. Then it soaks through the sheets. So what we did was we picked up everything surrounding the baby. So there was the mattress, the sheets, the baby, all of the clothing still attached. Take him to the closest linoed area. Pop him down on the linoed area, dismantle it piece by piece, rinse everything off, and then we put the nappy in the bucket. And it was like, so the nappy was covered in poo and everything else was covered in poo. And we're going to wash the nappies separately. And what we realised was if you just rinse the nappy and everything else, because let's face it, I was only going to rinse out the clothes and rinse out the sheets, and I was going to chuck that in the wash with everything else and be happy about that. I was like, what are we doing? So we, at that point, we just started sticking all of the nappies in at the end of the day into the washing machine, run the rinse cycle, that rinses them all out, stick everything else on top, and run one load of washing at the end of the day. Completely reduces the impact on the environment for the nappies because you're not doing a separate load. As long as you separate things like your covers and fold your Velcro tabs over, it's fine. Obviously, I wouldn't put in my really good clothes with the nappies, especially if they got Velcro on them, but with your general household washing, we used to stick the towels and everything through. No big deal. Like, honestly, as long as the nappies were all rinsed, it was just like washing a garment. There's no difference. But the thing is, when you start washing, there's a couple of things that really fascinate me. So first of all, is the information that you're given when you, or if you're researching online on how to wash cloth nappies. So first of all, and when I first started out years ago when I was a user of cloth nappies, and then when I started selling them, what we always used to do was suggest that you use half the amount of product. Now, what happened when we suggested you use half the amount of product was that, if I knew then what I know now, if you use half the amount of product and you do a full load, you only get the nappies half clean. And this is one of the problems that we had, was constantly people coming back saying my nappies are smelly. The reason was that they were using half the amount of product in a full load, and so the product wasn't getting clean, getting through the product through the nappies properly, and so then it wasn't washing them. So we were getting them half clean, not fully clean. So when you actually read the packet of the product, doesn't matter what you use, with some fabrics it does, but it doesn't matter what you're using when you're washing, you must follow the product instructions. Not like the brands might say half. That's fine if that's what they suggest with their product. But with general purpose products, you need to wash with exactly what they say, because it has been tested in the machines with the amount of water. And there's generally two sets of instructions on there. One will be for a front loader and one will be for a top loader. So if it's in a front loader, it will generally have less product, because front loaders use less water and they have less water to rinse out, so you don't need as much product. You also don't tend to overstuff a front loader, because if you can't get the door shut, you start feeling a bit guilty. But With a top loader, you can still fit more in. So what do? Push more in. So it ends up being a huge load. So therefore, with the top loader, you need more product. So they generally have an instruction for more product. But then there's more water that's used in the wash cycle, and there's more water to rinse it out. So you use less product with the front loader and you use more product with the top load, but you use exactly what they say on the packet. So you don't use half the amount that they say on the packet unless you are doing a half load, and that's how much they say to use for a half load. So if you're doing a full load, you use the exact amount that the product says on the packet for that wash to get the right amount of washing product in for the amount of water that is washing, and that will stop the nappies from not getting cleaned properly. The second problem that I see is that we all know better than the products, and we don't even read the packet, and we just know how much to put in. And so instead of, and because it's nappies, we think we'll put a little bit extra in because it's dirty. So what do? We don't measure it into the cap and add one capful. We just swirl it in the top of the washing machine like that, and that's about 2 or 3 capfuls. Then you realise that on the front of the packet it says it does 28 washes, but you're getting about 15, and that's because you're not measuring and you're adding too much. So what happens with that is it's fine for a wee while, but over time you're adding too much product, and so what happens is the product starts to build up in the nappies because it's not getting fully washed out because you're using too much, so there's not enough water to rinse it all out. So as it builds up, it starts to smell because you've got a product build up in the nappies. And so it's generally those are the two things that the most common things that I see with people having issues with the nappy, with washing, is they're not using enough, so they're not getting the nappies washed properly, or they're using too much, thinking that they're doing the nappies a favour, and it's actually building up inside the nappies, so they start getting smelly. So the best thing you can do is wash with exactly the right amount that it says on the packet of the product that you're using. The other thing to take note of, especially in New Zealand, we often wash on cold, right? So we're all obsessed with washing on cold water. So that's fine. On this product here, it says works well in both warm and cold water. But then, especially with the powders, we notice in the winter, you know, when you're washing on cold water, all of a sudden there's this whole powder residue that's built up, or it's sitting around in the washing machine or on your clothes or different things in the washing machine. Now, what it was interesting for me was when reading this, it says works well in both warm and cold water, but it doesn't say freezing cold water. So generally, in the summertime, the cold water in the washing machine is not a bad temperature, so it can break down. When you get down, say especially down south, and you're washing on cold in the middle of winter, and sometimes the pipes freeze. So the water coming out of that pipe is super freezing. And when it hits the washing machine and it's got this powder, it literally cannot break it down because it's almost like freezing the powder. It's so cold. So if you're washing in winter and you're using powders and you're noticing that you're getting a build-up, what I would suggest is either try to add a bit of warmth to the machine so you've got a warmer wash, because what will happen is that powder will build up in the nappies real fast. You get a really big residue because the nappies aren't getting as much sunshine. They'll get quite smelly in the winter because there's no sun and there's this build up of product residue in the nappy. So the best thing you can do is either to up the temperature to get it up around 20 odd degrees, or if you're using your powders, dissolve them to make them into a liquid. So get a little cup, put your powder in there, add a little hot water out of the jug when you've boiled it. Don't boil it specially, just add it there. Give it a swirl up and then just leave it there and add it as a liquid instead of as a powder, so that it's already started to break down, as opposed to putting it in as a powder and it's sort of not doing anything because the water's too cold. So those are the sort of things you got to watch for. So make sure you wash with exactly the right amount of product, not too much, not too little. The next thing is, of course, once we've washed the nappies and they've come out, then we need to dry them. Now, one of the things I find really interesting, is that you take the nappy out. Say you've got a newborn nappy and there's a stain on here. right? And you've washed the nappy and it's great. Like you've done the whole, you've followed all the instructions and there's a stain on here. Best thing you can do is hang it out in the sunshine. So you hang it out in the sun like magic, it disappears. It's completely gone. That's what the sun's for. So your best drying and stain treatment is on the line. So you get the nappies on the line, the sun hits them, bleaches them back out, and then you've got your white nappies and you've dried them nice and efficiently on the line. However, what I see is a lot of parents getting very stressed about these stains on the nappies, right? So there's a stain on here, and let's face it, you know, your baby can have banana poos, that'll stain, blueberry poos, that'll stain. There's all sorts of different foods, Pamol, the Pamol poos will stain some nappies as well. And we all get a bit worried about this, so because there's a stain in the nappy. So what do? We start making pastes and soaking them and trying to get the stains out. And there's a few people get really obsessed about getting the nappies back to white. First of all, it would be great if the brands didn't make white interior nappies anymore, because it just makes people go crazy trying to get these stains out. And sometimes you just can't help it. The stain is there. What I'm going to encourage you to do is not worry about the stains. If you hang it out on the line and the stain doesn't disappear, don't worry about it, because you can get the nappy in and put it back on the baby, right? So it might have a little stain. Nobody will see it. It's inside the nappy. You're going to put the nappy back on the baby, right? They're going to do a poo. You're going to open it up. Well, there's another stain. So if you'd spent a whole lot of time trying to get that stain out of the nappy, then you stick the nappy back on them, they poo on it again, and then there's another stain, right? So don't worry about it. If it's clean and it's just a stain, it's just a stain. If it doesn't come out in the sun today, then it might come out over time. Sometimes it's just food related and there's nothing you can do. Or you can keep going and trying to get it out, but the next time they put it on and they poo in it, you're back to starting point again, trying to get it out. Don't worry about it. A stain is just a stain. Best whitening treatment is the sunshine and the frost, right? Hang your nappies out the night before a frost, brilliant whitening treatment. The other thing you can do, and it just depends, always check on the manufacturer's instructions. If they've got a care label in there, do your double check on here to see what can and can't be done to the nappies. But we did use the dryer every now and then, and that came about because one day we thought, right, we didn't want to put the nappies in the dryer, and we thought, oh, we'll just drive to the supermarket and buy a packet of disposables just to get us through the next couple of days, so we didn't have to put the dryer on. So we drove to the supermarket, jumped out, go in there, and of course you spend $100 on essential things like chocolate, which you really need, of course. So we got that and the nappies, and then we got home and realised that by the time we started the car, drove down to the supermarket, brought the chocolate and the nappies and all the other stuff that we didn't need, and then got home, it was obviously a nasty day because it was a day that you couldn't get your washing dry. So the stress of that and getting out of the house just to get the nappies, to get back home, was actually not worth it. And when you looked up how much it cost you to run the dryer, it was about, I think it was about $1.20 or $2 to run the dryer for an entire load of nappies. It was cheaper to do that than to start the car to back it out of the driveway than it was to run the dryer. Like, it was easier and cheaper to run the dryer. So and then you didn't have to leave the house to just go and get a packet of nappies. So from that day we used to run the dryer, but we used to just do the absorbent part. So we'd hang them out as long as we could, and then at night we'd chuck them through the dryer. Just try and avoid the waterproofing, because it's the waterproofing and the elastic parts that are that can wear out over long-term dryer use. But every now and then, generally it's not going to be a problem. But you do need to check the temperatures, because most of them, especially if the waterproof is attached, will only go in on a cool dryer. So it's best to actually dry them as much as possible on the line or in front of the heat pump and just finish them off in the dryer. But do check your manufacturer's instructions, because you don't want to bugger up your warranty if you do just for putting them through the dryer. So do check that as well. But that's the sort of the simple 25-minute explanation on washing nappies. It isn't hard. It's not a big challenge. The basics is just knowing how the process happens. Once you start using them, you get into your own sort of routine of how you do it, I encourage you absolutely to wash the nappies every single day so you don't have smelly nappies sitting around. It keeps you in a good clean routine. You don't run out of nappies because it's easy to keep, easy to maintain. And then just, if you do ever have a problem with the nappies, then feel free to Facebook me or email me, or even give me a call, because that's what I can help you with if you have a problem. The reason why I don't have all the problems listed on my website is because you don't need to read them. If you do have that problem, then I'll help you sort it. Have a problem, then I'll help you sort it out. But you don't need to read it before you get the nappies. If you try and wash the nappies just as simply as possible, use exactly the right amount of product. If the product says you got to wash on warm, you have to wash on warm for it to work. If it says you can wash on cold, don't wash it in freezing cold. You just got to be a little bit thoughtful about it. And if you have a problem, then that's what I'm here for. I can help you sort it out. But just simplify it. Just rinse the nappies, wash the nappies, hang the nappies on the line. It is literally as simple as that. So if you've got any questions, pop me through an email or find me on Facebook, and I'll be more than happy to help. So that's it from me for today, and we'll catch you next time.